Hey everyone, very excited here for another episode of IdeaScale Chief Innovation Officer Fireside Chats. Today we are joined by Jason Carolan, Chief Innovation Officer of Flexential, one of the leading data center and private cloud providers. With over 2 decades of experience leading tech innovation, Jason is a cloud computing pioneer and an expert in digital transformation. He's here to share insights on the future of IT infrastructure and how businesses can stay ahead in an ever-evolving tech infrastructure landscape. Jason, really excited to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Appreciate the opportunity. Great to be here. Very excited to share some thoughts and engage on this.
Perfect. Let's jump right into it. For the first question is really about your specific industry. Data centers have evolved a lot over the last 20 years. What's Flexential's edge in this new landscape of hybrid IT solutions, but where you're combining both on-prem and cloud and public versus private cloud?
Yeah, really, it's creating an ecosystem that works best for the customer base, and it has evolved tremendously, I would say, over the last 10 years. I've been with the company 13 years and have been kind of in and out of the service provider space probably for about 20. It used to be very cut and dried, providing co-location services, and then you had companies that provided, private cloud and managed services and things like that. We've really been hybrid since the beginning in terms of providing our customer base the right set of solutions, kind of meeting them where they are in their journey, because everybody's in a little bit of a different journey. Just as we were joining, you were talking about your use of public cloud. We use public cloud too. So it's really, kind of bringing all the best pieces together and helping our customers architect and run and manage the right set of solutions. Nobody wants to really deal with data growth anymore. So being able to just, have data management platforms, security and, ransomware protection, all those type of things are just stuff that CIOs don't want to really deal with. And that's, kind of our philosophy.
Got it. And let's jump into your title for a second. So Chief Innovation Officer, that title means a lot of different things in a lot of different industries. What does it mean at Flexential or in the data infrastructure industry?
Yeah, it's somewhat unique. I sometimes say I'm the recovering CTO. So my background very much is technology. And, it used to be technology was code and software and networking and infrastructure, like computers. But increasingly it's infrastructure is very broad. It's now the amount of time we're spending with the power companies, the amount of time we're spending at looking at, different grid solutions and battery storage solutions, and how do we generate more power, so it's really, I've got a unique role just in terms of looking really across the entire landscape, not just, technology as we thought about, IT from the last 20 years, but really the entire landscape of, what are we going to do with nuclear? What are we doing with hydrogen? What do we think about quantum computing? What do we need to do to redesign our data centers to support more liquid cooling, which is really a big area right now for AI. So I think I got the best job in the company. I do actually do some real work too. I run, our IT and software development and security, as well as, doing some of the product strategy and industry relationship work that I do as well.
Okay, and then I'm going to ask a really challenging question about innovation, right? Innovation fundamentally means trying something new, and that means necessarily some risk. When we think about the data infrastructure industry in Flexential, how do you balance pushing boundaries and doing more innovation versus managing the risk? And as a customer of data infrastructure services, I never want any risk, right? I want my systems to work. I never want them penetrated by anybody. I do not want them to ever go down. How are you innovating when there's demanding customers like me saying, just don't let it break?
Yeah, well, it's a balance, and I'm reflecting on a coworker of mine that helped architect our denial of service, capabilities, and he just got sick of being woken up at 2 a.m. because somebody was getting DOSed for doing some crazy thing and taking out 5 or 6 other customers that are just collateral damage, right? So part of that innovation was like, I don't want to wake up at 2 a.m. I don't want my team waking up at 2 a.m. How do I go create a solution around that? But I think people pay us for resiliency and reliability. I mean, that's job number one. And then making sure that we're meeting all their compliance requirements, whether it's HIPAA or, PCI card issuance or, whatever it might be. And so, that balance of making sure that we understand the failure domains and the failure modes and how the industry is looking at best practices to manage something, I think that takes about 2 years, for me to go from like the beginning of a product sort of inception, doing the research, the design, the build, and then, ultimately feeling good about running it, I think is about a 2-year process. And I know some of my sales and sales engineering and product folks are like, well, why can't we do it faster? But I think ultimately you're exactly right. We're being paid to do it well. And so that just takes a little bit of time for sure.
So it's, I'm on the pure software side of things, and my product and sales teams have the same thing. Why can't we just engineer something in, a week? It's like, hey, to do it right and get all the bugs in QA takes several months. I don't take 2 years. It doesn't take me 2 years because I'm not dealing with infrastructure, but it still takes me, weeks and months, not days or hours.
Yep.
So a question, right? Is it fair to say that kind of given the constraints put on you, whether it be regulatory constraints or demand of customers, that in order to do a good job while meeting all those constraints, the pace of innovation is slowed down to kind of a 2-year cycle? And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but is that a fair characterization?
Well, I would say it's for doing something that's really net new. And I'll give you an example. We just launched a fully automated self-service networking product called Flexential Fabric. So it allows a customer to go into our portal and they get one physical port, and that physical port can be 100, 10 gig, 100 gig, 400 gig in the future, 800 gig. And you can put all these layered services on top of it. And that's now fully automated from the portal all the way down to the switching layer and the security layer. That process, did take, it took a while just because it really is end-to-end automation. The good thing about it is that it actually sets the foundation to go build on top of that. And I think that's the opportunity we have in innovation, is if we can kind of get it right the first time. And I'm famous for saying manage the model, not the instance. So if we can go create, what is the meta architecture for this service and be able to do it in an abstract way, it allows us to sort of build on top of it and get better and better and better as we go, which, I think that's key on making sure that pace continues. So now the next feature we add to Fabric, will take us a couple months, right? It doesn't take 2 years. So I think it really just depends how you think about it.
Yeah, that's a really important point that you just made, that sometimes those foundational projects take a lot longer to do, and they piss everybody else off because no one sees that you're laying the foundation, especially non-technical folks.
Well,
then you can build.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like right now we're looking at storage, right? And storage is an area that evolves, pretty quickly as well. But we've been, sitting on one primary platform for quite some time, and it's, the right time to reevaluate that. But man, like most of the cloud outages that I see in the industry, and I know that we've had, have been related to storage, because it is the Achilles heel of cloud, right? If your storage isn't working, then nothing else is working. So getting that right is just super, super, super important.
Cool. So what's one trend or technology you're betting will significantly impact the way data and infrastructure is managed, excluding AI? Let's, everyone talks about AI. Let's exclude that. So I'll make it a little bit harder for you. What's one trend that's going to matter for the next 5 years that you're willing to bet on other than AI?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if it's 5 years, but I've been starting to do some research on quantum simulators, which is interesting because it's, IBM has 1,000 qubit quantum computer that needs to run at 2 kelvins or whatever, right? So I mean, it's sort of insanity to think about.
For our non-scientific audience, 2 kelvins is very, very, very cold. It's like how cold it is out there in space.
Exactly. Which, right now I'm trying to figure out how do we cool, the latest and greatest NVIDIA platform. So it's what's interesting with the quantum simulation is the software basically acts as a quantum computer. And instead of 1,000 qubits, you get 20. So it's not a lot, but what's interesting is the style of programming allows for very rapid data transformation. It's highly intensive, so it uses GPUs. It actually layers on top of a lot of the stuff that AI is using today. But it's super interesting because the style of programming is unique enough where it can solve problems a lot faster with less code, and I think that's super exciting. So whether it's quantum computing in terms of a quantum computer sitting in our data centers, I think it's looking at this quantum simulation software layer sitting on top of some of the infrastructure that we already have.
Got it. And I want to jump back to Flexential and kind of your innovation program for a second. So 2 sub questions. Number 1 is, when did you guys create an innovation department or an innovation role? And number 2, how big is the innovation team, the dedicated innovation team at your organization? Actually, and the third question is why did you guys create a dedicated innovation team?
Yeah, great. All great questions. So I think we we launched my role in 2019. I was the former CTO and chief cloud officer. As we saw kind of our customer demand pivoting from what I would call the retail customer base. So like, the typical small, medium enterprise, now most of our customers are Fortune 500 or the Mag 7 or something like that. So our business has changed a lot over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. I get to run our customer advisory council as well. So that, gives me kind of unique insights into some of our biggest and best customers. And you kind of, I asked about how do you de-risk innovation? Sometimes it's engaging with those early adopter customers that are willing to take a risk. And it's not all are, and not all use cases are the same to them. But there are some that are very, hey, we'll go take a look at this technology because we need to go build out, something that, scales across the edge and, the 50 different data centers that, they may be in today from a content delivery perspective. So, I think it's very dynamic. The team, varies in size depending on, the type of projects that we're doing and, looking at kind of H2, H3, innovation and product. And then we work a lot with the product management team as well and sort of translating the vision into, what does the product future look like down the road.
Got it. Is there a constant team beyond yourself that it has innovation titles in their name?
Not yet, but it's something that we're thinking about, in terms of sort of innovation within the engineering, functions. But innovation should happen anywhere. So I think that's sort of the problem with the title is like, if innovation just doesn't happen in my world, it happens across the board. Maybe I can help the catalyst of it, but yeah.
It's funny. You said innovation should happen everywhere. And I run obviously an innovation software company. And the joke is like innovation should happen everywhere, but it often and frequently doesn't, right? It often happens nowhere, which is kind of the worst scenario.
Right. Well, and I think that's a little bit of the impetus of why my role was created was, what is the art of the possible? And my boss, the CEO, is famous for saying we should be, skating to where the puck is going. And that's really, I think, the precipice, the main function of my role is just to make sure that we're relevant down the road.
As a Canadian, I appreciate the hockey analogy, by the way. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to ask a bit of a, not a gotcha question, but call it a devil's advocate question, right? People think of infrastructure as a utility, and increasingly data centers are thought of a utility, and people don't think utilities innovate. Just keep the light on, right? Keep the light on, keep my servers running, don't innovate, don't screw it up. How do you, and like, first of all, is that a fair assertion that a lot of people would characterize your industry that way? And secondly, the real question I'm trying to ask is, how do you foster a culture of innovation where people are trying new things if that's the outside-in perception of your industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think it actually has changed a bit over the course of the last 5 years. I would say the world of cloud, and you were a customer of ours in private cloud. Cloud moved very quickly, since the beginning of cloud time in the early 2000s. So changing rapidly. I forget, but sometimes you would go read these product reports from the analysts, and it would be like there was 300,000 SKU changes on AWS last quarter, right? Well, who can keep up with 300,000 different SKU changes? So the rate of change, very high in that world. And then it was sort of thought that the data center world was like very slow moving and, there wasn't a lot of change. Well, I'll tell you, over the course of the last 2 to 3 years that it's gone completely bonkers. I mean, so the rate of change, whether it's addressing climate change, whether it's meeting customers' requirements for sustainability, whether it's trying to find renewable, power sources, whether it's trying to work with your power companies to figure out how to drive, more efficiency, but in more supply because the demand profile is so crazy today. Whether it's, building better air handlers within our facilities to be more energy efficient, which we can turn that over and sell it to customers. Right now, the whole industry is sort of working on liquid cooling and what does liquid cooling look at scale, supporting the 130, 150, 200, 1 megawatt racks that, NVIDIA's, dreaming up. And it's all very unique and bespoke today. So that innovation has to happen kind of in real time because it's so different in terms of how people are deploying the technology today. So the way one customer is deploying liquid cooling and CDUs is quite different from the next customer. And it's going to be a couple of years for those standards to kind of solidify and allow us to get to the building block approach, I would say. So lots of work to do.
So let me ask a follow-on question. You said kind of the rate of change has accelerated over the last, several years as a bunch of new trends have emerged within kind of data and technology more broadly. Um, has that required your organizations to change either in the type of people you have, the culture that you're fostering? And I'm asking you to kind of speak for your industry. Like, okay, if the rate of change has increased, that's good. But then do you have to change the people, organizations, processes, culture, or did this culture naturally just evolve and adapt to these changes, this changed business requirement?
I think it's mixed. I think it's very easy to get sort of set in your ways, right? In which case you may not see what's happening over here because you're just sort of focused on the day to day, and there's always enough day to day work to keep things, keep people busy. But I would say, for us, it's anywhere from or for the industry, I think it's making investment in key areas. Like, do you have an energy manager? Is there somebody on the board of directors that understands the energy sector? Because the energy sector and the data center sector are combining very rapidly together in terms of their ability to support each other, and it's not an area that's well understood in some cases, right? Um, and so I think it does just take it. Maybe it's one person, two people, maybe it's a different person on the board. I mean, there's just, I think, a lot of different areas that data center companies are looking at to kind of make sure that we're in the right spot.
Perfect. That was actually my last question. Is there any other topic that you want to talk about or that we should briefly touch on before we conclude?
Well, you said we can't talk about AI, so we won't talk about that.
We can talk about AI, but it's an overtrodden topic, right? I will talk your ears off. I'm a mathematician, physicist by training, so I'm also on quantum computers. I've written quantum computer code before, so. Yeah. But I'm trying to keep it super accessible and not touch on well-trodden topics. Anything other than AI you want to chat about?
I mean, to me, it's just to be in the industry right now is super great, because I think it's a new, it's whether it's the iPhone moment, or I like to call it the browser moment, because the internet was around for a long time, but nobody knew how to use it because it wasn't accessible, right? So I think that's I think this is really it's an exciting time, a lot of innovation happening. Infrastructure is cool again, which is kind of neat. I'd say to Andreessen, that hardware is eating the world right now, not software. So we'll see how long that lasts.
I just set up my own home media server, or FTP server, for the first time in life, taking an old hard drive. So I'm entering the infrastructure game as a very, very small scale competitor.
We need more. So yeah, keep going at
it. No liquid cooling on my side. Yet. No, but anyways, Jason, thank you so much. Really excited. Again, Jason's the Chief Innovation Officer at Flexential, one of the leading data storage providers. I'm Nick, the CEO of IdeaScale. Really excited everyone was able to join us today for the Fireside Chats with Chief Innovation Officers. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.